Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Q&A Day. It's Sleeping Saturday. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is our daily study, the Srimad Bhagavatam, on Saturdays and Sundays. We go a little off course. We do Q&A. That's today. And we're going to do a special Q&A tomorrow as well. And if you have a question, you can send it in to Miss Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And if you want to join us on Zoom, for all you others out there that listen in secret, hey, email Mara. She'll send you the secret codes you can enter and join our little humble Zoom ashram. Love having you. Kaustubha, happy Saturday.
Thank you.
Now, people don't know this, but before we were going live, Kaustubha started squirreling out of control.
Oh, no, we're not going there.
What?
We're not
Why? It was so interesting. He's like, do you know the devotee that's been abducted by aliens? I was like,
Yeah,
what? There's been a devotee that was abducted. I want names. I want places. I want implants. I want probing. Tell me who was, what happened.
I'm not going to tell you. As far as I know, even it's meant to be kept a bit confidential. So there's no way.
See, this is the problem with you guys. You want to keep it secret, and therefore we never know, and it stays buried in FBI files.
He was abducted, though. He was abducted.
Is it one of those things like this guy's crazy, or was it like
he wasn't crazy? Otherwise, he claimed to be abducted. Now, I never spoke to him personally about it, but my wife did, and he said, yeah, he had all this evidence. And, yeah. Anyway.
This came up because I met a person. I'm not going to say a name, but he was an initiated devotee, and I said, "Hey, so I'm friendly, and he was sort of a new devotee initiated." I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I don't know." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I don't know where I'm from," and he was a very sane, well-spoken person. And he said, yeah. "I just woke up one day in Venice Beach, and I didn't know where I was." Or anybody. I couldn't remember anything.
Wow.
And I met the devotees, and they're such sweet people. I ended up taking initiation, became a devotee, lived in the ashram. I was like, wait a second.
Like alien abduction to me.
I know. That sounds like an alien abduction where they just like do that thing where you forget everything.
Yeah, that's what they do to you.
Or heavy medicate. Well, and we only say this because these things have happened again and again.
No, we're not going here, okay?
We're already there. We are already there, my friend.
We're going past it right now. We're going around it.
And what Sadhaputta says, a PhD devotee, he said that if they were actually like psychotic, when they go through these psychiatry tests, they'd be like, it would be diagnosed as psychotic or schizophrenia or something like that, but they're all like diagnosed with things like post-traumatic stress syndrome, like something happened. Something happened, and they wake up in a field. Come on, man! Okay. They're all the same story.
Mara, are there any announcements this morning?
You started it, squirrel boy.
We do have some announcements. We have a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at 9:30 today, and Inand Chandra's Shloka memorization group at 10 a.m. Tomorrow we have Dunya Rico with the Urban Davies, speaking on the Urban Davies through the Bhakti Center.
That's
Tomorrow
at
at 11
a.m. 11:30. Which one is
No,
it?
11 a.m. 11 to
11
12:30.
11 to 12:30 for the ladies out there. Yeah,
For the ladies in the house, for the ladies in the house, and the yogis in the house, me and Lori Pag, who I see on my screen right now, are doing a retreat at Super Soul Farm. That's on my website, raghunath.yoga. And also me and Gauravani are doing a chant camp where we just, it's not like a kirtan study like we do in India. It's more like we sit around and chant, learn new bhajans, learn new songs. It's a weekend of getting the hell out of wherever you're from, changing locations, coming up to beautiful Super Soul Farm and singing. That's also on my website. I think that's Labor Day weekend. Great way to wind up the summer.
Okay.
Upstate's like tropical in the summer.
Yeah, right.
What do you know, city dweller? It is totally tropical. Come on.
Yeah, totally tropical.
I can't grow bananas, but it probably could in the summer.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get on with this,
Yeah,
sir.
let's get on with this, Raghunath. We got questions, important questions.
Important questions.
This one's a heavy question. Should I read it? I'll read it to you. You respond, okay? You start to respond. We'll both respond to this.
Okay.
This is from Vindhyavali Devidasi.
Do you know what Vindhyavali means? I'm asking you.
Vindhya.
I don't know.
The Vindhya. There's Vindhya mountains, right? It's a mountain range. Vindhyavali.
Oh, it's
I don't know what
interesting.
Vindhyavali means.
Vindhyavali. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. If she's here, you can write it on the board. She's usually on Zoom.
You need a good Sanskrit person. Vindhyavali writes this. This is a serious question. I have two questions for you, which have been bothering me on and off for years now.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I think this is especially directed at you, Raghunath, because you say this all the time. You mention in your podcast often, and I've also heard other bhakti speakers say this as well, that bhakti yoga is an experience-based practice and is not so much faith-based. But I do go through these quote-unquote dry spells of spiritual life where I absolutely find no presence of Krishna in my life. Something happens in my life which shakes me to the core. Chanting and reading then feel like chores, and I have no impetus to do them whatsoever. And I get overcome by prolonged, intense negative emotions. To get through these times, then, a little, most often a lot of faith in Krishna and in the process is needed. Could you please throw some light on these situations then? How can I cultivate faith during those periods? Should we just take that part of that first question?
Yeah, we may want to break this up instead of
Okay,
getting
let's
confused
break
here
it
in
up.
two questions.
So
I do say
thoughts?
it's faith. I do say it's experience based, but of course you need some faith to take a next step forward. So we never say, look, you join our church and everything's going to be fine. We don't say it like that. We say take what you can. If you find something attractive here, maybe it's like, you know what, these guys, it's some type of spiritual order where they're vegetarians or vegans. I like that. I could get interested in that. Hey, I need some type of meditational practice. Hey, I think that sound, there's a big thing on sound healing. I think these guys are really into sound, or I love kirtan, or I think there's something magical when they make this food, whatever it is, or I like deity worship or whatever that is. Then you take a little bit of that and you have some spiritual experience. And we were saying yesterday, you get hooked on something. This prashad is different. This kirtan was different. I mean, I've been doing music for my whole life, but this is different. This experience is different. The act of devotion is different. Making a flower garland can sometimes change people's life. So we take these experiences and then we take a baby step forward, or sometimes a giant step forward. And in that, we come to a next level. And then we get some other experience that says, you know what? These teachers of mine, these mentors of mine, they're saying, well, try doing this and see how that affects. Take another step forward and pooh, it goes like that. So Krishna leads us in and leads us away from our material existence. But that doesn't mean we're not going to hit ceilings. And in those ceilings, we need association. If you're feeling dry spells from chanting or reading, you need association of people that are inspired in their bhakti. And you got to search those out and you got to keep them close to you. I'm not I'm not separate from this rule. I need that on a regular basis. You got to find someone. And sometimes I like to find a plethora of different people, because they all give a different angle of bhakti, which inspire me. Mara can attest that there's all these different people I listen to on YouTube that are like, this is a good one, this is a good one, but they different parts of my psyche that they stimulate in my heart. So that's important. So it is experience based, but of course there's got to be faith there. There's got to be faith in anything. As soon as we wake up in the morning, we have to have faith that there is a floor to stand on. Everything in the world, just where we move in this world, is faith based. Going to school every day is faith based. I have faith that there's going to be a school there. There was one there yesterday. Doesn't mean there's going to be a school there. It could all be demolished. But everything, if you analyze it, is faith based. But it's really the experience that brings us more and more. It's not just like a light switch. Now I'm a devotee. I flicked the switch. Now I've accepted the Lord into my heart. We will get those moments, and then you're going to get dry spells, right? You're going to get this moment like, I feel the presence of God. Now I'm a devotee. It's small increments of movement forward.
Mm-hmm.
What you think?
Yeah, I think so. When you say it's not faith-based, you're saying not merely faith, right?
It's not just like sometimes people say, I was sitting under a tree and then I was enlightened. That was it. Now I'm enlightened.
Or just, yeah. Or
I was converted. I was converted.
Yeah,
I was converted by some. It's just like you hear these people, whether they're Christians, Muslims, they do this like conversion by force.
Yeah.
You convert or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you really convert the person, or are they just scared for their life? You can't just convert someone on a spiritual path. It has to be, you have some initial step forward because something's attracting you, some inspirations. Like, I want to get what they have. Let me move forward in this.
Yeah. There's two questions. We haven't read the second one yet, but there's some things that Vinyavali mentioned here. One, she said something happens in my life. So in other words, she's saying, okay, I practice bhakti, I'm into it, I'm doing my practices, everything's fine. But then something happens in my life which shakes me to the core. Now, she didn't say exactly what that is. So if I had a clear picture of what that was, it might help. And then she said, but when that experience happens, that she gets shaken to the core, then she says, chanting and reading. Okay, so like hearing and chanting, Shravana Kirtan, the most fundamental practices that hopefully we have a taste for, hopefully we feel natural inspiration for. She says, then those things just feel like chores. I'm doing them. I have no impetus to do them whatsoever. Or if she's doing them kind of like as a chore out of duty without any natural enthusiasm there.
Yeah.
That's an important, that experience right there, she's definitely not the only one that experiences that. That's important to identify that and put a circle around that. And let's look at that.
Sure.
Then in the next sentence, she says something else, which I want to kind of put to the side for a moment. She says, I get overwhelmed by prolonged, intense negative emotions. Okay. I don't want to address that right now. I think that'll play into the second question. We can get more into those intense negative emotions. That's important to put a circle around that too, right? And then she says, okay, well, how do you get through these times? So now I'm not going to talk about how to get through times of intense negative emotions. Let's talk about getting through those times where you're not feeling spiritual inspiration and your practices of sadhana feel just like a chore and you have no impetus to do them. And in a sense, your faith in those things is missing. It feels like it's missing. Why am I even doing this? Is there any truth to this? That kind of thing. So here's some thoughts. She says, how do I cultivate faith during those periods? And I would say that, like even we've mentioned this quite a few times, but like in that 13th chapter of the Gita, when Krishna's speaking about knowledge, right? Faith means something that we feel we know, even though we may not have empiric proof for it, right? And so in the Bhagavad Gita, when it's talking about knowing or it's talking about knowledge, Krishna, he doesn't say that he lists in 4 verses, he gives a whole list of like 20 things or so that he calls knowledge, which are really the virtues that reveal knowledge. right? That make
Yeah.
us feel strong in our faith, that we know something for real.
You got them on you?
No, we could pull them up if you want. I don't know if it's
Anyway,
necessary.
keep going. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. So the point is that if we're cultivating the right virtues, we can perceive that truth and feel it with deep faith. And so then the question is, what interferes with that? What is it, if I need to examine my mind, I need to examine my heart and see if, it's really the most detached mind, like the softest heart that is in the right condition to feel that God's presence, to feel it for real. And so what are the things that that erode that faith? What are the things that erode that faith? And I'm going to mention three different levels of intensity of things that may erode one's faith. But I think when she mentions, Vinjavali mentions, something happens in my life which shakes me to the core, that whatever that event is that shakes her in that way, if it causes her to begin to engage with these three things that we're going to say that I would call them 3 levels of negativity that erode one's faith. If it causes her to start thinking in this negative way, that may be the key here. So my first one is negative thoughts in general are illusion, like they're toxic, right? Like, in other words, life is boring. Oh, there's no point to this. So why am I getting up? None of these people are good people. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of thinking is not reality.
Nobody's sincere.
Nobody's sincere. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. That's not reality. That's illusion, and it's toxic. It means you're not perceiving things right. You meet a few people that turn you off, and you begin to think, oh, nobody's
Catastrophizing, Kaustubha. Catastrophizing.
Yeah,
everything's wrong. It's all going to get worse.
Yeah, that kind of thinking, you can't allow your mind to get in those loops, and so you have to, So when I say examine your mind, I'm going to direct my mind rather than allow my mind to go into these negative loops which erode faith. So that's one level of negativity, that just general negativity, or let's say negativity in general, right? These toxic loops of this sucks, life is boring, these people are not sincere, there are no sincere people, nobody knows anything, blah, blah, blah. And then the next level of toxicity is non-constructive criticism of people, right? Oh, that guy's like this, she's like that, that kind, non-constructive. I'm not saying there's no such thing as constructive criticism, but to wallow in non-constructive criticism of people is still more toxic.
To relish in putting somebody down.
Revel,
to relish it.
Wallow.
To wallow.
Whatever it may
I
be.
relish.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next level, and this is super toxic. Now we're getting super toxic. And that's non-constructive criticism of devotees. Right? All the Bhakti Shastras point to this.
Yeah, that is the death blow to your spiritual life.
It'll suck all the juice out of your spiritual practice. It'll erode your faith. It'll make you feel like there's nothing here. I used to enjoy chanting. I don't anymore. There's nothing here, So those 3 things, negative thoughts in general, non-constructive criticism of people in general, and especially non-constructive criticism of devotees, super toxic. Faith eroding. They will suck the juice out of your practice. So I'm wondering if when she says something happens in my life which shakes me to the core, that's tough. It's tough for anyone to go through a hard situation in life. But if your response to that is to begin to engage in any of these 3 types of negative response, if you can cut that off right there and say that even though I experienced this this shakeup in life, I'm not going to allow my mind to go into these loops of negativity on either of those 3 levels. That's kind of a test right there.
I like where you're going with this.
You like this?
Did you see me and Mara posted that funny little video on Instagram?
Yeah.
I'm feeling an emotion. I'm feeling an emotion. What should I do? Smoke it away? Drink it away? So those are the gross ones, but what you're talking about are these subtle ones. I'm
Right.
feeling some emotion, like somebody did something to me. How am I going to react to that? And if you don't, okay, maybe you won't smoke it away, drink it away, etc. But you might just hate it away,
Oh,
and you'll stir, or you'll revenge it away, or you'll spite it away. It doesn't go away. Matter of fact, it snowballs bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're living in that, and it's creating havoc in your spiritual life.
Right. Yeah. So then so in other words, she's saying I lose a taste for the practices of bhakti. I'm pointing to these three types of negative thoughts, which as being the cause. And then, kind of like with all these questions, whenever how do I become more sincere? How do I chant more attentively? How do I become more humble? How do I do this? In one sense, the answer to those questions is always the same. It's hearing and chanting and sadhu sangha, associating with the right people, hearing regularly, listening to the podcast every day. So you get Bhagavatam in your life every day. Those are the practices, but one has to counter those negative thoughts. One has to consciously say, you know what, I do not allow my mind to take me in those loops, because it's just like anything else. Like, if it has to do with unhealthy diet, other kind of addictive behaviors, at a certain point you say, I don't allow that anymore. On the level of the mind, I don't allow this anymore. I don't let it come out of my mouth. I don't let my mind dwell there, because I know that it's toxic and it leads nowhere positive. Now, that being said, I think the next part of her question, to me, if I remember correctly, I think we need to, what we just described here is what I think a person without like a acute or chronic kind of mental concern, can say, okay, I'm gonna get my mind out of those loops with, a little help of, by recognizing it and a little conscious redirection. But regarding the intense negative emotions that she gets overcome by for prolonged periods of time, I think this next question, if I remember correctly,
there are days when I finish my japa, I feel intense emotional discomfort.
For prolonged.
Never heard that before, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
So not to further isolate you, but it's situations which I think have left behind in the past come back to haunt me and ruins my day, and sometimes it ruins my weeks.
Okay.
Does this mean that my
part of the
heart?
question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Does this mean that my heart is getting purged of all these unwanted emotions and memories? Is this Chaito Darpanam Arjanam in action, which is the cleansing of the mirror of the mind? How can I deal with all this negativity in a constructive way, keeping Krishna at the center without letting the mind go off on its own tangent? What have your experiences been, if any? Thank you so much for everything you do. I found your podcast recently after years of dealing with intense negative emotions, which almost took me away from bhakti. And I'm so glad that Krishna sent you my way to assist me with my bhakti. I am in the Pacific time zone, hence unable to join live every day, but I do make it a point to watch you on YouTube, your YouTube's video afterwards.
Great question. Okay, so again, now she's saying there are days when I finish my job, I finish doing my meditation, I feel intense emotional discomfort. Sometimes, which I think I've left things behind in the past. They come back and they haunt her. They ruin days or even weeks. And then she asks, does this mean that my heart is getting purged of all the unwanted emotions and memories? Is this Chaito Darpana Marjanam in action? I would say, doesn't sound like it to me. Right. I would say that no, Chaito Darpana Marjanam should be the letting go of all these things, and they're not coming back and dominating your mind and thoughts.
It is. I don't. It's hard to say. It's there is a stirring up going on. Chaita Darpana Marjanam. To acknowledge, like, oh man, I've got some, but it could just point you in the direction, which it has. It led her to this podcast. You know what I mean? Krishna. The dynamic with me and Krishna is that some light will be shined on some of my bad stinking thinking, and I've got to correct it or I stay in a loop. So it's not like everything is just blissful now. There's work to be done. And Krishna will lead me to that, or lead you to people, or lead you to a person, or lead you to a book, or lead you to a recovery group or something like that. What do you think?
Well, I think just, of course, we're not sitting down with this person, and we're not professional therapists and so on. But
You're
when
not a professional therapist?
not even part-time. But when I hear this language, intense negative emotions,
Mm.
intense emotional discomfort, that come back and haunt me and ruins my day, or sometimes it even ruins weeks, at a time.
Mm.
That to me sounds like that's when I begin to think, like, maybe speaking to a therapist could be helpful for this. In other words, someone who's trained,
Mm.
someone who can recognize certain patterns in the mind and can help one break those patterns, can be a helpful thing. So that language kind of just caught my attention and made me think, yeah, if your mind is for weeks at a time is going to be submerged in heavy negative thinking, I think that's the kind of time where you seek a little help if you can.
You may want to hear about me and Mara's new practice.
I don't know. Do I?
Yes.
Okay.
It can
what is
help
it?
with things like this.
Okay, tell me. Yeah, what's your practice?
Before going to bed,
Yeah.
we just create a back and forth with everything we're grateful for in our life,
That's nice.
which is hard work. Sometimes you hit like now what? And then you're like, well, this and this. And it keeps the mind thinking, how am I fortunate? How am I fortunate? How am I blessed? Very powerful, because a lot of times we take all our gifts for granted. And then in the morning, it's what do we appreciate about each other? Great practice for getting out of this stinking thinking. And these stinking thinkings have happened because Vindyavali, because they're also a practice. We practice stinking thinking, and then it's our wheel is caught in a rut. And even if you try to pull to the right to get out, it drags you back to the rut. So these simple practices also work, because the stinking thinking was also a practice.
Right.
Right. Resentment's a practice. Fault finding's a practice.
Okay.
All right, sir.
I hope that's helpful, and
I hope so too.
You're in our thoughts, Vinjavli. It's tough to deal with that kind of stuff, but it's nice to hear from you and to see that you're taking this up.
Yeah. And let's get some good positive sounds in your ears during the course of the day.
Always.
Lectures, classes, kirtan. I don't know if you remember that guy. I had a guy in my teacher training. I tell you this story. He was a very nice guy, beautiful looking guy. And he's like, and I met him at a yoga festival, and he just came with me on this big trip to do a training. And the first 2 days, he was like, I can't come here. I have to go back. I was like, well, what's the matter, man? You're in a new country, it's a new place. He's like, I just have to go back. I was like, why don't you wait a few days and then we can talk about it? Yeah, I was in India. And after 5 days, he just goes, no, I'm going to stay. I've changed my mind. I'm going to stay. I was like, well, what's going on? He goes, I didn't expect this from his mouth, because he was just like a Abercrombie Fitch type of a guy. It seemed like everything was wrinkle free in his life. Okay. You know what I mean? And he was just like, my entire life, I feel like I've been possessed. My entire life, I've heard dark sounds, negative sounds, horrid sounds, suicidal sounds in my head.
Wow.
And they follow me everywhere. Wherever I go, my entire life, I don't know what it's from. The only time ever they've subsided is in kirtan. And he said, whatever it is, I want to just keep this going. The sounds. So we've been practicing stuff and inviting crazy. Ever invite crazy in your life, Kaustubha? Back in the day? You ever call up crazy and say, come on over? And crazy's like, wait a second, you told me never to come back again. Oh, no. I made a mistake. I want you back today. Come on over, crazy. Bring your friend Chaos. So we've been practicing and inviting crazy and chaos in our life. And now we got to change that invite.
Flip the script.
Flip the script. Okay, the next one is from Mike.
From who?
From Mike via email.
Okay, so I'll read this one to you.
Karnanda. Okay,
Yeah.
you.
Okay, this is from Mike, also known as Om Karnanda.
Okay.
And he says, I hope this message finds you all well. I want to pose this question for your next Q&A episode. I wanted to ask for advice on how to more easily take up a sattvic diet and lifestyle as a beginner on the bhakti path.
Are you joking that you have me answer this question, Prabhu?
What? You can
It's like
do this.
Raghunath, you answer this question. You're the most unsatvic guy I've ever met.
No, I'm not saying that. Now listen, he says, I've been addicted
It's a
to
practical joke, Kaustubha. It's a practical joke, and you know
This is
it.
not a joke. I'm counting on you to give a good answer to this. I've been addicted to caffeine since childhood, thanks to soda and coffee in recent years.
Like he drank soda as a kid, now he drinks
And
coffee.
he still does. Oh, I got you. Okay. I've been addicted to caffeine since childhood, thanks to soda and coffee, and thanks to coffee in recent years.
Yeah, commas. They change things.
Thank you. I also have had a regular weed habit since I was a teenager, and so
those aren't foraging weeds either, like stinging
dandelion
nettles.
salads.
Yeah, plantain, dandelion, and stinging nettle. I think he means a different type of weed.
Okay, so he's had a weed habit since he was a teenager, and so have many of his friends and family members. I've recently told myself that it would be better for myself if I were to take steps to remove these habits if I want to take up the bhakti path into my life more fully and to become the man that I deserve to be for Krishna and for myself.
Beautiful sentiment, isn't that?
Very nice.
What a beautiful sentiment, Om Karnanda. Mike.
What advice could you give someone who's sincerely trying to release these weights from their shoulders for the better? I don't know of any devotees nearby to have active association with in person, so I have to take charge of myself, which is difficult given my lack of discipline, but not impossible. Anything you can offer would be very helpful. Thanks for your time and your association.
Woo! How to change your gunas. That's the question here. How to change your gunas, how to change your habits, and you can do it because we're all born into a particular guna that dominates us. And so there's ways to do it. This is all 14th chapter, 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. First of all, the company we keep. And if you're alone, you say there's no devotees around me.
Sage group.
Then you join a sage group, you listen to podcasts, you listen to YouTube, because that's your association. Otherwise, the desire to want to be social, which is completely understandable. We're social beings. We hang out with people that don't lift us higher. I want to be around people where there's some accountability. And when there's accountability, I can't resort to my bad habits any longer because I'm going to be called out. And sometimes people call me out. I get angry at them. Who do you think? You don't know me. How dare you judge me? That's why we keep accountability of devotees, because they want to bring us higher. Don't get angry at somebody for that. Love it, embrace it, and create sacred places. And if your home can't be a sacred place, then go to a temple or come to Super Soul or whatever. Make a place where that's a sacred place, but try to make your home a sacred place. Try to make a room in your home a sacred place. But these things, to refine your diet, and to refine, and marijuana is a big thing. A lot of students struggle with this thing, and they say, well, it's legal now. It's not a big deal. It's much better than alcohol. People, good friends of mine, cannot stop. And what it does is it dumbs them down, and they can't feel their emotions, and they bury their emotions, and they're missing out on hearing the whisper of Krishna, how to move forward. And so refining our diet, what sometimes helps? Going on a fast, a cleanse. Sometimes that sort of recalibrates your habits. Waking up early recalibrates us. Going to bed early recalibrates us. Bathing once or twice or 3 times a day recalibrates us. Keeping all these things out of our environment, eating very clean, unrefined foods recalibrates us, because everything is addictive. if I eat Italian food every night, I want it on the third night. You know, if I'm eating a handful of sunflower sprouts for breakfast, and then I'll get more and more attracted to it. So we want to be around people. The books we read bring us to, truthfully, it's the books we read, the media we consume. You know, if I'm watching a lot of sexy movies, I want to be sexy. That brings me right to Rajaguna, right? I'm very, very sexy. So that's the thing. The media we're consuming, the books we're consuming, our recreation. Huh? Shrek. That wasn't so sexy. Yeah.
You know, I think
yesterday.
you hit on something important, Raghunath.
Mm-hmm.
It's my, one of the reasons why we recommend so highly these sage groups.
Yeah.
Is because I think probably more than ever, because of the crazy world that we live in today, the amount of information overload, the amount of screen time, the amount of all this stuff, social media, all this stuff. It's it kind of erodes one's willpower. We get weaker.
Yes.
And so in order to do anything, in other words, like say even to read a book, right? It like imagine we lived like in the 1800s, something like reading the book was the thing you did, like like addictively or something like that, like it was something that you were looking forward to. Nowadays, even reading a book for people is like a hard thing to do. If they want to read a book, so they join a book club, and they know that, okay, next week we're going to get together and we're all going to hold each other accountable to read 2 more chapters and discuss and share what we read. And
great analogy.
Right?
Great analogy. A book club, the accountability of a book club.
Otherwise, you never read the book.
Right.
And so by joining a group like a sage group, even if it's not even one of our sage groups, create your own little sage group or something. Like get together on a weekly schedule with people. And because like if you were in a group, Mike, if you were in a group and you're saying, this is what I'm going through, I'm addicted to caffeine, I want to drop it. I also have this issue and that issue, and I want to let them go so I can live a better life of bhakti. And then, within that group, and by the way, these groups, they're not limited to just that hour and a half, because almost every group eventually develops a WhatsApp, thread that you can elect to be part of. And also you make friendships, like you may become particularly close with 1 or 2 people in that group, and you may begin to associate outside that group as well. And then now you got people that are in your corner with you. They're helping you do the training, right? They're saying, well, hey, how did it go last week? And because you know that you're going to have that conversation, it gives you greater strength to enter into that conversation saying, hey, I was victorious this week. What I was thinking of smoking weed again, but then I remembered, I knew on Tuesday I was going to be speaking with you guys, and I said, I'm not going to do it. And what seems like an impossible hill to climb at one point, there's that tension as you're trying to lose the bad habit. And then once you've lost it, if you got good momentum going, it's easy. It's not so hard. And what seemed really hard is like not a big deal anymore. But just to get out of the muck is hard. And we need help with that. We need to have some group, some friends, someone that we're accountable to that's helping us move forward.
I like that. It's muck. It's like one foot is caught in the mud. The other foot is free, and the wings are flapping, and he just can't get out of there. And it's like a type of muck. And
so like you're saying,
you know what 12-step groups do? They have this thing where it's like, not only do you have a sponsor, but you have people that you reach out to. Okay, whatever it is, eating, drinking, sex, whatever it is, whatever you're struggling with, you text your person, I'm going through, I'm feeling this urge, and you text people, and they write back to you, and can I call you? You make a call or you send a text, and then the people just sort of like get on the phone with you, and they just sort of like talk you off the ledge.
Yeah.
And they realize, like, and as you just share what you're going through, you're like, oh, I realized that I'm in anxiety right now, or I'm hungry right now, or I'm hurt right now. And we're generally feeling some emotion, and then we try to like medicate that emotion.
Right.
And sometimes you just need to talk it out. So having people to reach out on a regular basis it's back to association. We're just now, instead of having a little town hall meeting, now we have like WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
And they're useful. Take technology and use it for greatness instead of letting it drag you down, sitting on the toilet scrolling through Snapchat.
There you go. A couple other things I thought hearing this question. What?
Just thought that was funny.
It's
Sitting on the
okay.
toilet scrolling.
But Mike mentioned the Sattvic diet, right, and lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you were going into some of the details of that, Raghunath, waking up early, et cetera, et cetera. And all that stuff is really, really helpful. People don't know it. Here's a secret. It's a mystical secret.
Tell me the secret, mystical man.
It's a mystical secret. It's something that a blind empiricist would not place their faith in.
Is it a superfood? An herb, perhaps?
It's a superfood, and that is don't eat any food that's not offered to Krishna.
Ooh,
and especially
like
don't eat any grains that are not cooked by devotees. And in general, don't eat food that's not cooked by devotees. If you eat only food that's been cooked with devotion for Krishna by devotees,
yeah,
the empiricists will say this is silly, but we believe that the consciousness goes into the food. And so if you're eating the consciousness of someone that is entirely sense controlled, it's going to be much harder to be sense controlled yourself.
You're eating their lust.
Yeah. Raghunath and I went through our 20s as young men in our 20s, celibates, right?
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do. You do it because a large part of it is eating the right food, eating only.
It's a large part of it. This sounds crazy, but the food you eat affects the consciousness.
Yeah.
But ever since I've been with Mara, she just cooks me prashad all the time.
Yeah.
That was one of our things. I'm getting together was like, she's like, yeah, I want to cook for you. And I was like, let's make a vow that we only eat prashad.
There you go.
So and it's great because I just didn't have the time and the mental management to do that previously. And now it's like, I feel very, 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 very clear.
So I think these two
and eating outside, like you were saying, eating out a
restaurants,
it's problematic.
It's problematic.
And Sherry Yannick asked the questions, why grains in particular? But because
fruits, but that's what they say.
Well, because fruits are relatively clean.
Okay, sure.
Like so, on a person on a fruit diet or a raw diet, there's very little karma. There's very little hands-on that with other people. But once you're cooking, the energy or the focus of the cook. What to speak of processed food, where it's not even cooked by.
Oh God!
You're just eating the consciousness of the robots making that stuff.
So one is that eating only prasadam, and another one is chanting some regulated amount of japa every day. That can give you tremendous power, like you don't even know you had, right?
Yeah. Kaustubha, do you ever hear the story of Maharaj Jai Singh? Just to give you a historical reference, this isn't Kaustubha just saying this. This is a thing vows devotees would take. Like even like worldly people, like Maharaj Jai Singh, he was the king of Jaipur.
Yeah, right.
He made a vow that he would only eat prasad. Wherever he went, he would only eat prasad. There were, and they also, other kings from Rajasthan would make these vows that they would have hours of sadhana before they even met with anybody in the kingdom. It's not just weirdo Brahmin Hare Krishnas. These were like people who are leading the world, leading the country. Then he had this thing where he would only bathe in, drink, and cook food in Ganges water.
Yeah.
So when he went to England, he took these massive silver lotas of Ganges water on the boats with him to take to England. What a life.
I've seen those lotus.
Seen those lotus,
right?
Pure
silver, made of pure silver. They're massive.
Biggest massive silver pieces in the world, according to Guinness.
Yeah.
I miss Guinness Book of Records. I used to read that all the time. It was one of my favorite books as a kid.
Yeah, big thick book, Raghunath.
Big thick book. Interesting thing. Those twins on the motorcycles.
Tallest man in the world.
Tallest man next to the shortest.
Longest mustache.
Longest fingernails. The guy's arm. That was creepy. What was that? Why could he not move his arm? It was like in a sling.
Oh,
oh, Krishna.
We got 13 minutes left, Raghunath. One more question.
Yes. From Bruna. This is for you, sir. I wonder, is this Bruna?
we'll do the okay. Let's do the Bruno one. Yeah, let's do the Bruno.
I skipped one. No, I didn't.
Yeah, the Bruno one ties into this what we're talking about.
Okay, here's Bruna. I have a question for Q&A day.
Is that supposed to be an imitation of Bruno? Because it doesn't sound anything like her.
It's been a few. Is this our Bruna?
Yeah. How many Brunos
It's
are
Bruna
out
G.
there?
It's Bruna G. It's a very common name outside of America. It's like Bruno for the boys and Bruna for the girls.
I never met another Bruno before.
I've never met a Bruno. A Bruno. Bruno or a Bruna. She's there first. But it's a name out there. Like South America, it's big.
Apparently it's not that common.
Like Renata and Renato.
Okay.
That's not that popular in America either.
Bruna.
Bruna's
we're big fans of Bruna. She's a close dear friend.
We love her. I have a new question for Q&A day. It's been a few months that me and one of my BFFs talk constantly about asking something to Kaustubha.
All right.
Favoring Kaustubha, aren't you, Bruna? My list.
It doesn't
be. It's okay. I ask Kaustubha questions too. We are curious to know how he organizes his routine. And today, funnily enough, he talked about 3-3-3.
Oh, yeah.
And I decided to finally send this email. That was funny the day you said, yeah, you do 3 hours of something straight. And I was like, 3 hours of something straight? How can you do that? I was laughing throughout the whole day. What I'm most curious about is how does he keep his equanimity living in New York City?
Oh.
And what are his strategies to keep it?
Okay.
Never leaves his apartment except to go to Central Park for 3 hours and then comes back in.
Kind of like that.
Rocks in his chair for 3 hours. In terms of how to organize his social time, his study time, his work time, his food time, I will say I've never met a guy who's more regulated in your eating. It's quite impressive.
No, come on. There's plenty of people.
No. I mean, swamis who have brahmachari disciples cooking.
We'll get into that.
It might be too much to ask Kaustubha's guide to live life. But if he can go a little deeper on 3-3-3, we'd love to hear it. Thanks a million. Big hugs to you, Kaustubha, and maybe Raghunath. I'm just joking. Big hugs.
So this question, I think it ties in well with the previous one coming from Mike Omkarnanda, because it's about lifestyle and habits and all that. And I want to be clear right from the beginning. I'm no expert in
you are
time management, that kind of thing. But I do, I'll say this right off the bat. In one sense, Raghunath, you and I really missed out because like everyone else in the Western world, we didn't get trained in any good habits. But in another sense, we were fortunate that in our 20s, we did have ashram experience. And that has been a game changer. Mm-hmm. We really need to develop you and I need to put energy. Once we start to get our act together on a few other things, like get the Sage Academy going and get this, we need to give people an opportunity of a good place to go to get 1 year, 2 years of ashram experience.
Ooh, 2 years, like a whole new university.
Yeah,
the Vedic University.
Yeah,
with Professor Kaustubha.
We'll bring in all kinds of good people, but what I learned and what I practiced in those years has been invaluable for me. And I recognize that when you're not living in an ashram, when you have your own home and you have your own money and you have your own computer and your own time and all of that, you're just going to get pulled down that current unless you have developed the ability to resist it, and to draw to carve out your own current. So that's part of what one really needs if they're going to practice bhakti effectively, is the ability to kind of to figure that out. It's all very helpful. So again, rising early, I rise naturally at usually 3:30 now, which I know to a lot of people, most people in the world, are going to be like, that's crazy.
And usually some people on Instagram are like, you got to wake up at 5 a.m. We're like, that's nothing.
5 a.m.
At 5 a.m.
I've
That's
wasted
for
half the day.
weaklings.
Because this time is the most important time.
It's magic time.
It's a time where you can think more deeply. Whether you want to meditate, study, think. You're not going to be able to think as deeply once the world starts kicking into gear. This time is very, very valuable time. Well, let me start here. She said she was curious about, like, how do I keep equanimity living in New York City? I actually like New York City. It's like,
He's like a New Yorker. They're like, yeah, look at my great apartment and my closet. Look at my closet.
I got a closet.
I have a closet.
No, but there's certain.
I have my closet's half the size of your apartment. Do you know that?
Yeah, you got a very big closet, and you got many of them, and you got a huge garage. And you got a basement. You got like all kinds of stuff.
My basement's massive. I can have like a full-on soccer game in the basement.
Right. But I like New York. There's just one thing about New York that really turns me off.
The traffic, the noise, the pollution, the
it's the
people
traffic.
screaming at each other,
Air
the
quality in New York
fumes,
is actually not bad
fumes
at all.
coming from the grills on the subway.
You're
They
always
smoke, just smoke coming up. What is it from? Steam that you're inhaling. The dogs always kept on leashes.
Raghunath, even in your house, you got some big machine to counteract some kind of negative stuff that's going on there, right?
Really?
Like fracking or something like that. Yeah, in that room that I stayed in that one time, there's some
the
noise.
radon
I'm like,
room.
it's quieter in the city.
Radon is like, it's mysterious if it's even true. The people,
Okay,
it's debatable, but we had to get it when you got the house for inspection. You have to de-radonize it.
Even you move out to the country, you got this noise machine going on all the time.
I'll turn it off when you come. You can just get the radon.
Okay. All right. So it's the traffic. That's the one thing in New York that I just do not like at all.
The subway, the scent of the subway.
Not so bad. No.
Come on, guys.
Any case,
got to walk through a field.
You see, you're always trying to drag me into this country city debate. There's no need to go there, Raghunath. Okay. Any case, I'm happy in New York, and you're right. I do spend a lot of time in the park. I do wake up early when the city's very quiet, and I go to bed early too, But what?
Just thinking about John Denver. Well, I got me a fine wife, got me old griddle. When the sun's coming up, I cakes on the griddle. Life ain't nothing but a funny riddle. Woo! Thank God I'm a country boy.
Okay, stop. Stop.
Mara, get some cakes on the griddle, please.
All right. Now,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, speaking of that and eating, yeah, this is key. She's asking, like it's study time, work time, food time. I'm fortunate, and I'm very grateful that my wife prepares 3 meals for me every day, right? And they're healthy meals, they're delicious meals. They're really well conceived, and she took the time. This was another thing, going back to the previous question, about being able to let go of negative habits. You need to eat good food, but in order to do that, you need to know how to cook well. Otherwise, you're going to want to go to restaurants and want, all of that. This is a fundamental thing that everybody in the world needs to learn.
People have to learn how to cook again, right?
How to cook, cook nice, healthy, delicious food. It's not that hard. I got trained in that as a Brahmin just by being in the Hare Krishna movement. I couldn't help but learn that kind of stuff. So, I could invite people over to my home and make them a nice meal, and I can make myself nice, healthy meals. It's not such a hard thing to do, but it's a game changer in life. Now, but I don't even have to cook. My wife practically cooks all my meals now, and they're timely, they're healthy, really healthy. And
you are also a great cook, by the way. It's just
I got some skills.
You cook me incredible meals.
It's not hard to actually. Most meals are not. If you learn how to cook rice well, it's a simple little formula. It's not hard to do. Cooking vegetables is a simple thing, and if you just they're easy to put a little butter and salt on them, a little olive oil and salt, and they taste great. What to speak of if you learn a little bit more about spicing and you develop what you see. My wife learned, and she knows about how to spice things, so that not only do they taste great, but it's very healthy. It helps aids digestion, brings in all kinds of healthy things for the blood, for the liver, all of that. My wife also, throughout the day, she just comes, she hands me like a night before we go to bed, I get a little trifala, you
A
know,
little trifla.
a little trifala like cooked in this, steeped in the hot water.
Mm-hmm.
Very healthy stuff. You know, it's magnesium I get. You know, all these different things. She just like pops that. Without that, because the fact is, without that, with all the screen time that I'm exposed to in life, you know, and all the other kind of like energies that are running around here, it would run me down. You know, and so having that good, healthy, grounding food um, is really important. Spending time in nature, very important. Sometimes my wife will just look at my face, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and she'll say, "Oh, you really need like to go just like go in the park right now and ground yourself, sit under a tree, chant under the tree, spend some extended time with your body on the earth, breathing, you know, and feeling that energy." And it's a fact, you know, it's a fact. So the body's got to be recharged like this. So I try to do these things, you know. I try to go to sleep early, rising early in the day. That's key, you know, to productive life. Eating well, that's key. Eating not too late in the day before you go to sleep,
That's my
that's key.
hardest one. Hardest one.
That's so important, right? Because otherwise you wake up with a dull head, you know, and stomach, you know, feeling bloated, and your stomach feeling like
A little
indigestion
gassy.
all night.
A little gassy.
Okay, see, we don't want that. um, so you know, the 3-3-3 thing that Bruna mentioned was
Are
this
you a
idea.
napper?
I do nap, yes. And after I got COVID, I actually nap like twice in a day usually now.
But a question: how long are your naps? Are like a half
10
hour,
minutes,
5 minutes, 10 minutes? That's
10,
yeah.
10,
That's
15
a
minutes.
that's a little recharge nap. We call it a
Yeah,
snap.
snap. But that 3-3-3 thing was something that I came across recently. But that is 3 hours a day is like your most important project. And then 3 urgent but less time-consuming things. It may be
Mm-hmm.
meetings, important phone calls, other side projects. And then
Eat for
3
3 hours.
maintenance tasks. 3
Okay.
maintenance tasks. That could be emails, other types of study. You know, what I found something about myself, Raghunath, is like
Yeah, tell
I
me.
want to engage my mind um, in study and in thinking of our my dharma. I know what it is, right? It's like I'm not a scholar,
You're not?
right? No,
Sorta. You went to Oxford, didn't you?
I did. Well, I didn't go to Oxford really, but I did have the good fortune to be able to hear from a few Oxford professors. But I'm not a scholar. Like, if I were a real scholar of all of this, I would know Sanskrit,
Yeah.
right? I would, you know, I would be approaching these texts in a different way. What I am is like a translator in a sense. Like, I'm a translator in the sense of taking, you know, I've been immersed in the practice and the study of bhakti for decades.
Mm.
So in a sense, I know it well. And my job, and I think your job, you know, my dharma and your dharma, is to take that and communicate it in a way that it's understandable by people that haven't been immersed in it for so long, right? So how to take those ideas and convey them.
We're like translators.
That's what I just
We're,
said.
yeah.
Yeah. You said-
Well, I'm just saying it in one word. We're like
that's what
translators.
essentially that's what we're doing. Communicators, translators. And so in order to do that well, in order to keep my mind out of trouble, I want to study a lot. I want to engage, whether I'm discussing it with someone else, whether I'm reading books. But I know I've discovered about myself that you know, my concentration isn't all that strong. So sometimes what I need to know when I'm going to study and how I'm going to study and how I can study in different ways, how I
Hmm.
can flip it. There's study that I do early in the morning, or even writing, which is something that I'm doing now too, right? For when it comes to deep concentration, I can do it before the show and I can do it before noon. And deep concentration, I'm not even going to try to do it after that, right?
Yeah.
But there's other kind of study I can do, that other ways to engage my mind that are healthy, that, you know, like there's other kinds of stuff I can read, I can think about, I can prepare or speak to or discuss with other people. So and I can also switch things. Like I can study something for half an hour and then drop it and then study in another way for another half an hour, and that way I can keep going. Whereas if I just try to study in one way for 2 hours, I wouldn't make it. You know, I'd be too
Mm-hmm.
distracted. So there's things like that. I don't know if I'm getting to the heart of Bruno's thing, but I'm doing the best I can with
I
it.
think it's good. It's good.
Hope that was.
I thought you were going to say 3 hours of eating. Just constantly eating. I'm full. Keep eating. It's only 2.5 hours.
3 hours of eating, 3 hours of sleeping.
Thanks. Those are great tips. It's
Okay.
time, sir. It's time.
We're out of time. All right.
Oh.
So we have Q&A again tomorrow. At the same time, we'll take on more questions, right?
Q&A day. If you're one of the Zoomers and you want to write a Q&A day, we can unmute you. It's unmute day. So write that in. Write a question into Miss Mara, Wisdom of the Sages 108 at gmail.com. We're going to see everybody next week. It's going to be a big week. Having Kaustubha up at the farm here. Farm boy.
Yeah.
Farm boy. Me and him riding the tractor around. Him hanging on the back of it. We're going to paint a white fence. What else are we going to do? We're going to put straw in our mouth. And then we're going to wrestle in the high grass and roll down the hill. Oh, we're looking forward to that. We're going to husk. We're going to husk something. What do you husk? Corn? Looking forward to that, Kaustubha.
You don't even have any crops.